This is Office Talk with Annette Stepanian. Hey there, thanks for coming back and joining me this week for another episode of Office Talk. So when I originally came up with the idea of starting a podcast, I knew I wanted to have this interview element in it where I was interviewing other folks who I admired and I could learn from, and hopefully you could as well. What I really wanted to understand was how people were designing a life and business on their terms. After all, I had taken a really big risk. I had left my own job at a very secure job at a national law firm, and it was all with the hope of designing some sort of balance between the work that I do and the life that I want to live. In today's episode, I'm talking to Heather Crabtree, who has been on a very similar journey as well. She originally went to law school as well, and after practicing law for a short amount of time, she decided this was not her cup of tea, so she went on to start her own business. At first, that was an event planning and wedding planning business, and she did that very successfully for quite a few years. But today, that has evolved into being the founder of the Savvy community. If you're not familiar with Heather or the Savvy Business Owners, this is a Facebook group that Heather created a few years ago, really with the intention of creating a community of like-minded women so that we could all support and connect with one another as we were on this journey of growing our businesses. Since then, it has grown to a community of thousands of members where people are connecting on a daily basis, they're collaborating, they're learning from one another. And in this episode, you're going to learn a lot about Heather and how this all came to be and where it's going. But more importantly, what I love about Heather is she tells it to you as it is. And sometimes it's so easy for us to look from the outside and think, oh, this person is so successful, or this person has got it made. But she doesn't play into that. You're going to learn a lot about Heather, you're going to learn a lot about her journey, but you're also going to get some takeaways of some of the lessons she's learned over the years, having run different businesses, and how she goes about designing that life and business on her terms. With that said, let's go to the show. Thank you so much for being here today.
I am super excited to be here, Annette. Thank you for having me.
Hey, it's such a pleasure. We have actually known each other for quite a while, and today you are the founder of the Savvy community, but I want to take our listeners back to maybe, what was it, 2013, 2014 when we first met in B school.
Yes.
And I just want to hear about kind of how you got started in all of this. I know we have a connection because we both are lawyers.
Yes.
So it's something, misery does love company sometimes.
Yes. I don't practice, but so you're still doing the thing that you went to school for. I'm not.
Yeah. But I know when I was, leaving the firm and I was trying to explore different opportunities, like that was one thing I wanted to find was other lawyers who left the profession of law and what they were doing. And so maybe can you take us back to, you practiced law, you went to law school, and then what happened next? So kind of bring us up to speed.
Yeah, so my background was in business. I went to college and I had a business management major, but I always dreamed of being an attorney, always. I can't remember. I'm sure there was a time when I wanted to be other things, but I don't remember that. I always wanted to be an attorney. And so that was my goal. My goal was to actually own a law firm, my own law firm, and run this big practice. And but when I was in law school, personal things happened to me that really changed my life. And it definitely changed my perspective on being a business owner and the world of law. And so it was when my father passed away. Every year in law school, I had a family member pass away. So the first week of my first year of law school, my grandmother passed away. The first year of my first week of law school, my second year, my uncle passed away from cancer. And the first year of the third year of law school, my father passed away.
Oh my God.
And then a month later, the third year, this is going to date me, but the month later, September 11th happened. So even though law school was really great for me educationally, personally, I was a train wreck. It was the hardest time of my life, and it really made me put everything into perspective. So I determined that during that time that I probably wasn't going to end up owning a law firm. But after my father passed away, I really wanted to make sure that I finished my education and I, got my law degree and then started to work for a law firm. And honestly, I was the only woman there, and it was all men. And then all of the staff, most of them were older females. And what I found really challenging was that I was 22 years old. So it was just all really, really hard. It was a really hard time in my life when it should have been really exciting because I was actually doing the thing that I had worked so hard for. It was a really hard time in my life. And I decided after a year of working for that law firm that it just wasn't for me. And so I gave my 2 weeks notice. I was not married yet. I had told my fiance, now my husband, that, hey, I can't do this the rest of my life. This is just not me. And he's an attorney, and we met actually in law school. That's a whole other story. But so that I say that law school brought us together, which was an amazing thing. Right after I lost my father, I met who is now my husband. So law school has amazing memories for me, but because of that experience that I went in, when I actually started working for the law firm and then kind of got out of it, I was just really empowered to help women. And I've always kind of been that independent, you know, rah women gal. Yeah. And so, but I wanted something creative. I think I just needed to get out of the legal space of like analyzing and I don't know, all that stuff that you're always doing and researching. And so I was like, what can I do that's like the furthest thing from law? And somehow, I don't know why, but I thought either I want to be an interior designer or a wedding planner or an event planner. And
were you planning your own wedding during this process when you were making your
had I started yet? we were engaged, yes. Okay. And I don't think we had started really planning, and I didn't really plan my own wedding, but anyway, I was like, okay, those are the two things that like seem really fun to me. And I thought, if I am an interior designer, I have to go back to school. Like, I don't know, no one told me these things. It was just like my irrational thinking of this, the way the world works. And I was like, if I could do this, then I have to go back to school. And there's no possible way I'm going to more school right now. Like, I've been in school my whole life. And so something inside of me said, okay, then you can go start your own event planning firm. I don't know. I think it was that I had the legal knowledge, so I knew I could form the company, I could do the LLC, I could do all this stuff. I knew how to do contracts. All that stuff was really easy to me. So all the things that seem really hard to a lot of other business owners, I was like, I got that down like nothing. That's easy. And then I say that was when my creative detour started. Because I then was in that industry for 11 years, and I never, ever, ever thought that I would be a wedding planner for 11 years.
That's so funny, because when you talk about, like, you just went completely on the other, and that's what I did, right? And yes. What's funny is when I was still kind of I was at the law firm, but I was still exploring, like, my creative side. The first class I took was an interior decorating class, because I love it. But then I'm like, I'm a Libra, so I'm so indecisive, and I would not be able to decide between paint swatches and fabrics and stuff. So I was like, I can't do this. But I did the same thing. I went and I started a jewelry line. I had like no business starting a jewelry line, but I think it was like that complete 180 that we were craving, which is using this other side of our brain and to do something that delivers joy to people.
Yeah, and I now know, having like processed, the grieving process and processed the death of my father, that it had a lot to do with that it was, he actually passed away of a heart attack at the age of 44 immediately. Like, it was sudden. And so for me, it put into perspective to me, like, wow, like life can end any moment, which is a little morbid, but it has really motivated me. It's what keeps me motivated, but it also keeps me grounded. And, I think it also makes it so that when I do get in that hustle mode, that triggers me to like step back. And I know this is really crazy, but it's like, don't kill yourself. And it's just the way I function. So when I see people working really hard, I love it, because I love that drive and motivation, but I also know the extreme of that. And so I caution people that you have to have, there's never the balance, but there's a time to hustle, and then there's a time for, to back off the accelerator a little bit, because if not, you not only get into burnout and overwhelm, but it can cause really big health issues for you. And so I'm very, very aware of that. I'm lucky that I don't have any of those symptoms that my father had, but I will say that it's always a moment when I feel myself getting in and just working and hustling so hard. I'm like, oh, okay, like step back, It's not worth it. You don't need to always be like grinding in your business. So
yeah. And have you read the EMyth Revisited?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yes.
I recently picked it up, and I was like, and he talks about how, your primary aim or whatever he calls it is like basically the life that you want to create for yourself, and your business is supposed to serve that. And I think like subconsciously for me, when I left my job or at the firm, was really to do that. But I don't know, something about the way he phrased it, I was like, oh yeah, like it's supposed to be a tool to get us to the life that we want, or to have, design that life that we want. And sometimes we get that backwards. I think
I always say my like phrase is make sure that your business fits in your life and that you don't have to fit your life in your business, because for so long I lived that way where my life was trying to fit into my business, and that was not a fun way to live. It definitely has to be the reverse. And sometimes it's hard to see that, like when you're in it, So.
Yeah. And I mean, so much about like, even this podcast is about like designing a business and life on your terms, right? It's figuring out like, what is it that I want and how do I structure it in a way that works for me? Because I think we live in such a unique time in history where we have a lot of luxuries and a lot of access to things, and we can do that. So what are some ways in which you have been doing that for yourself? Because I know you're a mom. I know you are, the founder of the Savvy community, which is, is huge and has blown up over the last few years. Like, what are some ways in which in your day-to-day you are working on, okay, this is my life and this is my work is a part of my life?
Yeah. I always like to do things that keep me grounded and humble. Like, I am a true believer of it doesn't matter how much, because everyone has a different level of success, right? And so people look at me and say, oh, she's successful. Some people do. And for me, I do think that I've been really fortunate and I'm grateful for what I have, but have I reached the level of success I want to see? No, of course not. But I also think that, I don't know. It's a crazy thing because I guess with what's most important to me is like being a really good mom. Mm-hmm. And so although like my business is super important to me, if I had to choose, it would be like being the best mom. And so for me, I do things, this last year has been really intentional. I've been really intentional about growing a team because I know all the things I want to do, but there's no way I can possibly do that. I mean, my littlest one is home with me 2 days a week. I'm the one that shuttles them back and forth most of the time. And my husband's super supportive and he does a lot too, but we don't have a lot of family here. My sister's here and she helps us sometimes. But as far as like grandparents and stuff, or aunts and uncles, a lot of them, we don't have any of that. And we don't really have people that watch our kids a lot. So we're with our kids all the time, which is amazing. But it also makes it so that you have to really manage your time well. And so I've learned that over the last year that I like to focus in on what I want, to know what I want, to know and this is what I teach, to know what your mission is, to know what your vision is. So what in the future, what are you working towards, and to know your core values. And then I use it as checkpoints. So anything that comes in my business has to get through those 3 checkpoints. And if they don't, either I have to rework it to make it get through the checkpoints, or I have to delete it and say no. And that's hard because there's a lot of opportunities that come along and I have to say no to because they don't allow me, it takes up too much of my time that either I don't have time to focus on my business or it takes up the time from my family. So I think that I've had to really be intentional about the goals that I choose. And I will say last year I said, I'm going to make $500,000. And that's one of the big financial goals I had. And I realized quickly that in order to get there, I was going to have to grow a team. But that people think that, okay, you do that and you have that goal and you're going to grow your team and that's going to make you a lot of money in the time. But the thing is that money was going to my team members. So that money isn't coming to me. So that's not making me I made quite a bit of money for the business, but a lot of that's going back into the business, building this whole new membership site has been a huge amount of money. So I think that there is this perception of, in 2 years, she's making so much money. And the reality of it is, it's not a lot of that money is coming back into my pockets right now, but I know my bigger goal. And I know that in order to get there, I had to intentionally choose people and get people on my team. So that's been one big thing that I've really, really worked on this year. And then the other thing has been to focus and like narrow down and not try to do all the things that we all want to do, because I was trying to do all the things and I was doing them all like half. And then I wasn't, the other thing is I brought a lot of people on, but I realize I'm a good leader, but I'm not a great manager.
Really?
I'm not.
I feel like you are, but I'm not I'm not on your team, so I don't know. But
the reason being is because I'm the idea girl. So I'll come up with all these ideas and then I'm like, here we go. And my team can only take so much of that where eventually they're like, whoa, crazy woman.
Yeah.
Stop the madness. We get that you have a lot of ideas, but like, let us catch up a little. And so I then brought on Amanda, who's now my business manager. She didn't start out as my business manager.
We love Amanda.
Yes, everyone loves Amanda. But Amanda Burris is my business manager, and she really manages the team well. And why she's such a better manager than I am is because I'm able to come up with all the crazy ideas. She spreads them out and is like, okay, what can we do and what can't we do? And then she like delegates them to each team member that we have that, for graphics or for, tech or whatever it is. And then she follows up with them. So I'm really good. I'm really great about like getting people pumped up about things. And then I'm kind of over it. And I'm just like, okay, and now the next thing. And so as a manager, you have to like stay on top of things and be like the person that's like checking in. And I love to check in with them, but when I check with them, I like want to know how their business is going and like, how are your family? And Amanda, although she likes that too, she's the person of like, okay, did we get things checked off the list?
Yeah.
And I'm not great at following up with that. So like I have a program that I run that I have to do that, but that's because I have Amanda who's telling me like, you need to check up with them, because I'm good about like knowing where they are professionally and like personally and what their challenges are, what they're struggling with. I love to like get in and like have those real relationships with them. But when it comes to like actually making sure that the progress is made and checked off the list, thankfully I have Amanda in all aspects of my business for that.
So P.S. we all need an Amanda in our lives. It was so funny because I met Amanda at the Savvy Experience, which is a conference that was, hosted by Heather. And she kept talking about Amanda, and Amanda is, she's really quiet and kind of introverted and shy, sitting in the back of the room, and so, I ended up connecting with her, and she's like, it's so funny to me because I feel like we all want to become entrepreneurs so we don't have a boss, and then all we want at the end of the day is a boss to tell us what to do, which is what Amanda does.
Yes, I love it. I love it every day when she's like, this is what you need to do. And I'm like, yes. Because for me, my mind is just on like, it is continually, a lot of entrepreneurs are like this. Not all of them. I've realized that there are people the balance that you need to have in your life or in your business to balance you out. And so that's what Amanda is for me. I say she contains the crazy.
Hashtag we all need an Amanda.
Yeah. But here's the thing. So I want to make a point about that is that, so people say that, okay, 2 years, 2.5 years into her business, she has a business manager and she has all these people on her team. Okay. I was an entrepreneur for 11 years before this. And I'm not saying that to say you have to be an entrepreneur for 11 years to have that. But I've just learned a lot about managing people. I had a team when I was a wedding planner. I had a business partner. So there's a lot that I've learned over 11 years of what I'm good at and what I'm not. And I also am in a place, because I've had a business before, I came into this business profitable right away because I had money from that business that I could put into this business. So I just like to put things in perspective because not everyone's in that same boat. And so I like to compare apples to apples. So just because I'm 2.5 years into this business, I also ran another business for 11 years. So
I think that's really important. And thank you for saying that, because I do think people forget, the whole comparison thing that, and you forget like some of, these people who are big in the space that you and I live in, they've been doing it for a really, really long time.
Yes.
And are still working really, really, really hard at it. And we just don't get to see that. We see the business manager, we see the like employees or whatever, and we're like, they probably just sit there and work 4-hour work weeks, but they don't. So
yeah, and the reason why I had to have a business manager too was because I stay home with my son on Mondays and Fridays. Right now he's going to kindergarten next year, but it's really important to me. Like he's my last one, and my kids are my kids and my husband. I adore them, so I really want as much time with them as possible. And so for me, I knew that because I only have about 15 to 20 good hours a week that I can really, and I say focused work. Like I do work and do emails and stuff, but like I can't do calls, I can't do interviews, I can't do intense writing or any of that kind of stuff during that time that I'm with them. So, and I don't, like it's either I'm with them or I'm working, So for me, at the time I am in my life, I needed other people to help me. And I was lucky enough that I, again, had money from the other business that I could start putting towards that. Now, that wasn't at the very beginning. I didn't start bringing on people even at this business at the very beginning. Like, it's been a process. So
can you talk to us about, what was that transition like? Like, if somebody is trying to grow their team, because especially if you read the EMyth Revisited, he talks a lot about that, is that, you're really creating this business that should be able to operate without you. Right? Yes. You're creating this like franchise prototype. Not that it's actually going to be a franchise, but you should be able to bring on people and they should be able to operate it. Right. And so he says, you kind of create job descriptions, and at first you're doing each of those yourself, you're documenting everything you're doing, and then eventually you kind of move yourself up to a point where you're kind of the visionary and the leader and whatnot.
Yes.
So maybe that's what you did. I don't know. But can you talk about if someone is trying to start a team and trying to start bringing in these people to make up for either their, the skill sets that they're not good at, or maybe, free up some of their time so they can spend more time with their family or friends? What are some things that they need to be thinking about as they're trying to embark on this?
Yeah. So, and this is not like a promo, but I know this really well because I actually live this. I used to help business people, this is what I used to do. So I guess there was a part we didn't talk about. So when I went from being a wedding planner to now what I do, in between then, I was also consulting wedding professionals on their business, how to run a successful business. And that then went into consulting and coaching, a broader spectrum of a group of people into, female creatives in general. So because I was doing that, we had learned it from our own business because we grew our team and I had a business partner. And so we had to learn a lot about, working with other people. And then when you're working with, businesses and you're looking in from the outside world and you're helping them, you see it even more. And so I created a course called Streamline with Systems. But the point is that with the course, the first thing I make you do is go, what are you good at? What do you want to be doing? And that is like such an important thing that we think that as entrepreneurs, and here's the deal. At the beginning, you do everything. Everyone goes through the same process. There's not an entrepreneur out there that hasn't been through that. Even if they've started out with a lot of money, you're doing a lot of stuff. But you have to know what the goal is. Like what is in the Big Leap with Gay Hendricks. That's another book, and it's about your genius zone. Part of it is about that, and that is like what you're really good at, and what, like, if you could do the one thing, that would be the one thing that you would do. And so you want to think about like, what is that for you, and where are you at now? So like, what do you need to put in place in the in-between space in order to get you to the place where you want to be? And that will lead to your bigger vision for your company, because if you're doing that one thing, then that allows you to grow your business and to do other things, right? So that's what I tell people to do, and that's what I also did for myself. I said, okay. And again, it's really easy to talk about this now, but like it wasn't this strategic, nor was it this simple when it was actually happening.
Yeah.
I just like to be really real about that, because it's not pretty. There's been lots of tears and a lot of failures and along the way. But I think for me, what I knew that I knew that I was growing this community. I didn't know it became its own person almost outside of me. And so I started bringing on people. Now, as far as my team, I first brought on a gal who now just does my bookkeeping. But when I brought her on, she was like, I took I'm going to work in my genius zone and everything else is going to her, which is not the way to do it.
Yeah.
I took it to the extreme. And so when I realized that what she really loved doing was the bookkeeping. She didn't love the emailing. She didn't love the scheduling. She didn't love the blog posts, all the other stuff I was having to do. She didn't like it. And so I was like, okay, like, what are you really good at? And so the same thing that you do with yourself, you have to do with your team members. Like, what are they good at? And what are you bringing them on for? And it can't be the kitchen sink. So I realized that she just wanted to do bookkeeping. So I kept her on. And then from that, and that was just, I mean, I pay, it was just a few hours a month because my bookkeeping is pretty easy. And so it was just like that first hire. And I think that's the hardest thing for a lot of people that are business owners that are trying to grow their team. Most of them are type A, so they have really hard time giving up control. And I had already done that in my other business. I'd learned to give up control. That was like a piece of cake. So I was ready for that. But I had always had someone else to help me make those decisions as a business partner. Well, part of that. And then I had the team members. What I learned from my first business is that always include your team members in your decisions. Don't run it like the corporate world where everything is just like hierarchy and like you make the decisions, or where most corporate jobs are. You make the decisions and then it kind of trickles down and it's everything's like exactly the way you said it was going to be. I learned that allow the people that you bring on to give you feedback and to be really constructive and challenging you a little bit of maybe we can do it this way. And, your way isn't always the best way. And I truly believe in that. And so when I started, then I brought, I think Indigo and Irene, I'm not sure who was next, but Indigo is my I call her my director of happiness. But so she takes care of emails and scheduling and everything that comes in. She also does all my tech stuff. So like webinars and setting up ConvertKit, all this stuff. She does all that. And then Irene does all my design. And so my web design, any of my graphics. But I think start little. Like they didn't come on and they weren't doing the whole And now Irene does everything. Like she does all my graphic and all my web design. But we didn't start like that. It was just like any other relationship where we had to build that relationship. And so every person that I brought on has been that same way, that we've kind of dipped our toes in the water. And then we said, okay, we've kind of shuffled a little bit. What do you really want to be doing? What is it that you're really good at? And as I hired more, it was easier because I knew that like, okay, I need to make sure that they're good at this because this is what I need somebody for. But at the beginning, I didn't know that. So it was just kind of a eventual process that you learn as you go.
Well, I know my experience with hiring has also been that I have to be on my game. Like I need to know I need to do stuff in advance. I can't be doing things last minute because I need to give them enough time to do what they need to do. And I need to know where I'm going, because they're looking to you for, direction. And you have to be able to provide that. So it is definitely a process. And I hear you, like the first few times it's just, you're just, I don't know, I'm figuring it out. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, but, okay, so can we talk a little bit about the Savvy community?
Sure.
In terms of, kind of like where it started, what the genesis of it was, and kind of where it's going, because that's your baby right now. Outside of your other babies.
Yes, it is my third baby. So for me, okay, so the original was the Savvy Business Owners, which is the Facebook group. And that really came out of wanting to feel a part of something. I know it's crazy to say now because people are like, what? But I've been very fortunate, and whatever I've done, I've just worked really hard and been motivated and driven to like just do better as I go along. But I will tell you, in the wedding industry, I felt really alone. And I had a business partner, we had team members. It was a really, really hard industry for me to be in. I mean, the legal world is really rough too. But I felt like the wedding industry was like the legal world. It made the legal world like a cakewalk.
Really?
Yeah, it was really interesting to me. And it's changing, and it has changed over the years. So like I've been out of the business for a little bit. But what was so hard for me was no matter how, I felt like I worked harder, and I felt like, and maybe this is just me not feeling like, not allowing myself to be a part of the cool group, but I felt like I kept working harder. I knew I wanted to do more than just be a wedding planner. Like I thought, okay, like I want to educate and do more with it. And I really wanted to start speaking in the wedding industry. And I never really got accepted by that community to do that. And so it was really hard for me because I felt like I worked really hard, and then there was this ceiling basically that I wasn't going any further and I'll never forget this moment in the wedding industry. And there was a specific conference that was really well known, that all the big players were at, and I had attended, but my goal was I really wanted to be on that stage and speak. And not the owners of it, the host of the conference, but there was a group of people that surrounded them that were kind of like the founding people of the group. And one of those people said to me, "They'll never ask you to speak. You're like not part of the circle."
Oh, wow.
And so that stuck with me. I was like, wow. And for me, I had always known community. So like my dad was one of 11 kids. I have a ton of cousins just on one side of my family. We got together every Sunday. We did kickball. We had, Sunday lunch. It was a potluck. So I grew up only knowing that like you're always surrounded by people. There's always some there to support you. And it really has played a big part in like where I am now, because I really wanted to feel that again. And business is just really, really hard. And so I just want to feel accepted and like that I can do more. I don't want anyone setting limits for me. Like if I set my own limits, that's fine. If I think that's one thing. But when people are telling me like, you'll never, and I'm like, oh, okay. So you just told me I'll never be a speaker on this stage. And it really motivated me to like, okay, when you create something or when you do something, always keep that in the back of your mind about how you felt when that was said to you, and how defeating and how, I don't know. I don't want anyone to ever feel like when you're starting a new business, like that's how you're starting, or that you've been in a business for a really long time. You've done a really great job and you've done this, you feel like you're doing you're successful. I thought I was successful. And then to be told that, it totally just devastated me. So when I started the Savvy Business Owners group, it really was a place I wanted like-minded people, like to be like anyone can come in, you're accepted, we're going to help each other, we're going to lift each other up, and not be so, I don't know. I felt, for me, the wedding industry was really cutthroat at the time. It was really hard. And so that's just kind of the values that came with starting that. And there was no strategy. There was nothing like game plan for the Savvy Business Owners. It kind of just grew. And I just kept bringing in, I think I always feel like you go things out with a positive attitude, and you go and you help people and you give before you ask. And so that's kind of what I led Savvy with. I tell people I started with 0, just like everybody else when you start a Facebook group. Yeah. And I think that just built on. And because I didn't allow people to come in there and be negative, and I didn't allow them to be like really promotional in there, it was really about giving back to each other and collaborating and finding people to connect with and helping each other. I was telling somebody today, I was like, when I first started doing the webinars, because that's kind of what came out of the group, is the webinars. And I saw people, Annette being one of them, like people weren't paying attention to enough. I was like, oh my gosh, they're so brilliant. But people aren't seeing like what I thought, like people were seeing all these women, but not in the way that I knew they needed to be seen. And so I was like, okay, well, we're all in this together. So like if I can make, 100 people aware of these women, then yes, like I'll do whatever I can. And I knew that was going to help my business too. So that's really how Savvy was it spread and it grew because it was like, okay, lift somebody else up and that person will lift another person up. And then we're educating and we're learning along the way. And then that led to a lot of collaborations and, I don't know. It kind of has again, I feel like its own human now, Savvy Business Owners Group. But then when you grow a group, you realize that with anything, it changes, and you have to adjust, you have to adapt and evolve with it. And so the new thing that is happening is the membership site, which is the Savvy community. And that's just because the Facebook group, there's limitations on what you can and cannot do. And I just saw a greater need for people in there, and the members that were a part of it said to me, like, this is why I'm not as active, or this is what I wish it had. We did a survey and we basically took all these ideas and bundled it up and put it in the membership site. So,
oh my gosh, that's awesome. Can you talk a little bit more about the membership site, or?
Yeah, absolutely. So it will be a place. So what we say about it is it's a place where people, entrepreneurs, create, connect, communicate, and collaborate, which is everything that happens inside the Facebook group now. But it is a place where you'll get education, you'll get monthly trainings. We will do monthly hot seats. So one of the things that it's been really hard for me as we've grown is to stay connected in the way I want to be connected to the members. And so, I've had a lot of people say to me, wow, I can't believe you're doing the membership site. You're going to lose so many people from the Facebook group. And to me, that's okay, because it's not about numbers. It's really about those really deeper connections that I loved at the beginning. And so, making sure I stay connected. So when you come in, you set up your profile, you introduce yourself. So if I don't know you, I get to know you, and then everyone else gets to know you too. There'll be monthly trainings, monthly hot seats, which means you'll get to apply to get a hot seat, and then we'll pick one main person a month, but then we're going to pick 4 other questions a month to answer. And we'll do that all audio. The trainings will be visual. There'll be video, and then you'll get the replay afterwards if you're a member. There's the connection inside the group. So there's a search option where you can go in and you can say, I am looking to hire someone, or I am looking to collaborate. There's like different buttons you push on there. I am looking to have a virtual coffee chat, because that became really popular in the Savvy group. I'm looking for someone as a mentor. And when you come in and sign up for your profile, you'll be able to pick those things. You'll also, so when you search, if someone's searching they can search in general, or they can say, I'm looking for a graphic designer, or I'm looking for an attorney to hire or to collaborate with. And then if you were a member, then you would come up underneath that. It would it's like a search engine. So that's really cool. It allows you to connect with people. It operates similar to Facebook groups. So there's forums where everybody can chat. It operates similar to Facebook group in that you get notifications and you can mention people and that kind of stuff.
Wow.
It's really, really cool. And then the other thing that is there's a lot of really cool things that are going to be happening with it. But the other thing that I love is that we have the in-person meetup. So it's the online portion of it, but then we're taking it offline. And we have the Savvy City Leaders. So my goal is to eventually have Savvy City Leaders all over the world. That's quickly happening. Definitely international already. But we will have leaders that lead them, and then they will always be small groups. So I don't want like hundreds of people. I want 25 people that really, really connect and really collaborate with each other locally, because I think that's so important. I don't know. I have this need to get back to like grassroots,
Yeah, I definitely see that there is this like movement to like in-person, one-on-one. The online stuff is great. It creates such great introductions to people, and you can kind of do it on your own time. But I do see, and I don't know, maybe if it's because it's me, I'm at that point in my business where I'm like, I love the online stuff, but I want that one-on-one connection with people. Like, just being at the Savvy experience or going to conferences, you're like, there's a different energy that you can't really recreate online, even though we have, all these great live platforms now, with Facebook Live and all that stuff. There is that need. I mean, we're humans, right? At the end of the day, we're people, and we want to crave that connection. But I love what you have done. It's like you've you didn't go out to create this, it kind of just organically evolved. But what was really smart about you was, people always say, like, listen to your customers, like, really, really pay attention. And, like, I think that's something that you've done really well is you've been paying attention. And I think another thing you do really well is you connect with people in a very, like, authentic way. Where, like, you really know what a lot of people are doing in that group, right? And you're always trying to, like, support.
A little crazily sometimes.
I don't know. I don't know how you keep it straight in your brain. I do not know how you do it. It's amazing.
Again, it goes back. I mean, I know people ask me this all the time. It goes back to that's how I was raised. Like, when my father was as a business owner, I saw him do that. I saw him. I mean, my husband, my husband's so much like my father sometimes. So it's crazy. But my dad, I mean, really, they had nothing. He was one of 11 growing up. So, like, he talks about used to tell me about how he was 5 and he was still in a baby bed, because they didn't have, like, they ate beans, it was this typical, like, I walked and snowballed, all that stuff. But what I saw him do was he didn't have a college education. He just worked his butt off. And what it came back to was relationships. That's how he became really successful, is when he would go to meet people, he would know he would come back and tell me these stories about people, and he would know their kids, and he would know their pets, and he would know what was happening to their parents, and just just caring, honestly, really intentionally caring about people. And I just saw that time and time again. And when he passed away, we come from a really, really small town in Indiana. So most people, when you have a funeral, it's not like, there's not a ton of people. I mean, you have people, and he had thousands and thousands and thousands of people that showed up to his showing. And it was just a lesson to me of, like, it isn't, there's a lot of lessons I've learned from it. Like, money isn't everything. That just always care. And if it means that you have to choose between caring for a few or caring or like doing a lot, but like care for the few. Like, and I know that, yes, with Savvy, I don't know everyone in there as like I would like to. Again, that's why I really want to go back to, like, I'm not going to know everything about every single person, but I do want there to be a connection. So it's like that 7 degrees of separation, like with Kevin Bacon kind of thing. And again, it's not about me. It's just about, I want there to be intentional and real relationships. And I guess for me, I don't know anything besides that, because when I was growing up, that's just how it was. And you cared about people. Like, I would tell the story of, we used to, in my grandmother's house, we would come in and you didn't come in without kissing and hugging each family member. And that was a lot of family members to get to. It wasn't even a question. And, and when you left, you did the same thing. And, and there was a lot of drama with that sometimes. And so I was taught to, like, just listen to people, because what they're going through or what the appearance is about people is not always the true story behind the curtains, but how it's outwardly presented might be like in rage or anger, but it's just, maybe it's pain, that they're going through. And so I don't know. I learned because I had no other option growing up. Like, I had to learn about a lot of different people and the way you reacted and that you interacted with them. So yeah. Yeah.
No, it's interesting. That stuff takes time, there's like no shortcut for that. You have to put in the time to, connect, and it's not an email you just send out and you can send out to a lot of people. It takes time. And I think, some of those quote unquote old fashioned values, like they're old fashioned values for a reason, because it works, and they're time, they're time tested principles, everything runs on relationships. So that's awesome. I
think though I'll say this really quickly. I had, even though this happened to me, my father passed away when I was really in my early 20s. It was a painful and the hardest thing, and I still deal with it, but I'm grateful for the experience, and then it chose me to put things in perspective, and it showed me it showed me really quickly who was my friend and who wasn't, who really cared and who didn't. And I really paid attention to like what they did at that moment in those really trying times. Those are the people that reached out, and they're still, I have my best friends from high school. I have 5 girlfriends that were still best friends. And I think it taught me that even though you're not talking to those people every day, you still, when you do talk to them, it's still like nothing, time never passed. So I don't know. There's so many lessons. I was lucky that I learned all of that. That tragic moment happened at an early age in my life because it taught me so much. And it really, I feel like a lot of lessons that a lot of people have now that I see people going through, I'm like, oh yeah, I was forced to go through that when I was 22. So
yeah, I feel that same way about my parents are divorced, and I feel that same way when at such a young age you are kind of forced to kind of really see people
yes.
in a way. It's like without kind of like that facade, and it teaches you a lot, and it kind of helps prioritize things for you. But I think it's also, you have to also recognize that you were smart enough to to see the lesson in it, and not let it, like, to see the positive out of such a tragic situation and kind of improve yourself and better yourself, rather than let it define you in a way and kind of make excuses for, maybe not achieving things or not trying to improve, because you could, you could look at...
Yeah, you can take a very different path. Yeah.
You totally can.
That's so true.
You totally can. Oh my God, I feel like I could talk to you forever.
We like to talk. We know this about ourselves.
Yeah, that's the lawyer in us. We love to talk. Okay, cool. So we are going to link up to all of the great resources that you talked about, like the Savvy Community, the books we talked about. But I want to cap off this our time together with the question I ask all of my guests, which is, one thing I know for sure is, and I ask you to fill in the blank.
Yeah. I think one thing I know for sure is it is a journey. It's when you think that you've reached the destination, it's never the destination. That I was taught a lesson that I was second guessing myself. And when I was in my wedding planning business at the end, I said, why am I not where I thought I would be? And I was really struggling with it. And it was when we were selling, I had decided to sell the first company. And my sister told me, she said, but look at the journey and look at the dots on the journey and how they've connected you. So even though it might not have been the dots, the dots you didn't think maybe those were the dots that you would have, one thing has led you to the next, to the next, and to the next. And you've built upon that, which has led you to where you are today and to be able to do those things. If you would not have done all of those things, who knows where you would have been now. And so although you think that you're in a place and you're going, gosh, I thought I would be so farther along, or I thought whatever it is, I thought I would have made this much money, or I thought I would, for some people, I thought I would have had kids. I thought I would have been married. I thought whatever that is, it's like, don't forget about all the amazing things that have happened and the accomplishments, which is we're horrible at, all of us as entrepreneurs. Celebrate those accomplishments, whether big or small, because they are all a point on the journey that leads you to your final destination. And don't take those points for granted.
Girl, I feel you on that, because I think I don't think I'll ever feel like I have arrived, which is good because it keeps you, striving and wanting to be better and improving, but it's always this like gap of like, where you are with where you think you should be or where you want to be. And like, I always say, like, we focus on that delta difference so much, and that's where so much like pain is and so much, disappointment and frustration is. But I always say, like, look at kind of from where you are and where you used to be, and like celebrate that, because that bar is always gonna, you're always gonna raise it. And but I hear you, like day to day, it's really hard to practice because when you are so driven and motivated, you're always like, oh, the next thing. But sometimes you got to take a step back and just kind of appreciate the dots.
Yes, you have to celebrate.
Yeah.
And stop to celebrate, and that sometimes has to be an intentional stop to celebrate what you're doing.
It's like a calendar reminder.
Yes.
Like, oh, it's time to celebrate.
Kind of, yeah. Not kidding.
Awesome, Heather. It's always such a pleasure talking to you. You always have so much to share and so much to give us. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always fun to talk to you, Annette.
Awesome. Cool.
Yay!
So there you go, my friend. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Heather. And if you'd like to learn more about her and check out the Savvy Business Owners community, head on over to the show notes available at AnnetteStepanian.com/podcast/21. I'll see you back here next week with another Legal Quickie episode where I'll be answering some listener questions about the law and business. If you have your own question that you'd like to submit for a future episode, you can share them with me over at AnnetteStepanian.com/Q&A. Thank you so much for being here, and I can't wait to talk to you later.